You ready to go?
Oh, this family, it's been a real great season of learning and sharing. And it's so perfect as how I just asked a simple question because myself and Amaya was known yesterday, and Eitai gave a perfect lead in to exactly, you know, how all of this fits. And then this is the amazing thing about this. It kind of like testify and confirm that we have to be on the right track. We have to be on the right track. It just couldn't accidentally fit and connect up if we wasn't moving, in unison.
That's
So
correct.
I'm going to title this "The Biblical Influence of the Scientific Social Engineering of Inverted Energy." I repeat, the biblical influence of the scientific social engineering of inverted energy. What we're going to do, we're going to look at this to see the effect that this inversion has had upon the whole creation, inclusive of us, internal and external.
That's right.
It has changed our whole chemical makeup. Our
Mm-hmm.
chemical makeup has been changed. But of course, we're not aware of it and have absolutely had no idea of how this occurred. So Abba Ben Ami left us with an extraordinary revelation here. And certainly we have to now take it and expand upon it, simplify, magnify, bring it into, reality, bring it into unity and oneness so that we can see, quote unquote, what Etai mentioned a few minutes ago about what he's working on now in respect to the wonders. Because we had the wonders, sort of distorted, in our perception of the wonders. So now as we continue to awaken and start to look within from a more energetic, instead of looking at, the external, physical makeup of this emanation into this devolution, descent, and fall, we got to look at it from an energetic point of view, a holistic energetic point of view. We're going to start with this point. The biblical narrative of the beginning of the creation of the world, where the stage is set for the great epic confrontation between two perceived ideas that are actually one. And this is where we start now. The beginning of the creation of the world, where the stage is set for the great epic confrontation between two perceived ideas that are actually one. This great epic struggle is described in the narrative of the chapter entitled, quote, "Let There Be Darkness," in the quote, in the book Imitation of Life. And the chapter, "Let There Be Darkness," within the first pages is where the stage is set as to how the great epic struggle will occur. So now we got to stop and ask ourselves, when Abba Ben Ami wrote this, no one has ever discussed this within the kingdom, not even him. I've never heard him outside the writing of the book give any, dissertation,
Hmm.
lecture on this particular chapter of the book. Let there be darkness. So I was in Mississippi, Ramon, where it all began for me last week. And naturally, you know, I'm not able to stand and speak and teach. So every first Shabbat, they go out on the mountain, what we call the mountain of wisdom and strength, or the crater. And so naturally, when I got out, they was already in motion. And so I sit and I listen. And what they do basically give testimonies, you know, of things that is happening with them. And I mean, you can get up and say whatever you want to talk about, you know. That's the freedom of that particular time. So naturally, I can't, but I want to put something on the floor to see where the saints are so that I can hear. And, you know, there's something that we always say within the community is that the wisdom is in the midst of the people. Mm-hmm. Well, it is, really, you know. But I put on the table, what I put on the table was this chapter. I asked the question, I say, why do we think, you know, Abba Ben-Ami wrote in Imitation of Light, the chapter, let there be darkness. Now, he didn't say, let us remove darkness. He said, let there be darkness. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. He said, let there be darkness. And to me, I said, well, wow, this is relative because it's in the chapter called Imitation, in the book called Imitation of Life.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, of course, you know, no one had really thought about it like that. And then I asked the question, I said, well, if he said, let there be darkness, what was the relativity or what was the reason that he wrote this? And then he turned around and say, scientific social engineering creates inverted energy. So, of course, you know, quite a few people got up and said some things. And of course, one brother, he stood up, he started talking about culture and how we done lost our children and how we need to, he gave me the answer to what I wanted to hear to verify what I know done already occurred, which is the biblical influence of the scientific social engineering of the
yes.
people.
Come on, Nasik.
And so this began to really be something special for me to continue to work on this. So continuing on, along with where the warfare was to take place and the weaponry that were to be used, the warfare is taking place within the perceived subconsciousness of every individual. Okay, now I use the word perceived subconscious of every individual because I want to explain why I said subconscious, you know, of every individual.
Gotcha.
Because I know when we hear subconscious, you know, we got the many, you know, because if you're saying something is sub, you're just really saying it's below your conscious, you know.
Right.
If you're saying it's sub, it's just below your conscious. But I want to be able to give it a little definition greater than just below your consciousness now. Because if it's taking place below your conscious and you ain't conscious, you don't know what's taking place. So I want to give it a little bit more clarity. So I said, meaning below their conscious knowing and thinking level. So that's a little different, just below your subconscious. Right. I want you to know it's beyond what it's beneath what you know.
Yes.
And it's beneath or below how you are thinking. Okay. Now let me go back now. I said the weaponry that is being used and the warfare that is taking place within the perceived subconsciousness of every individual means below their conscious knowing and thinking level. So something is going on, you at war and don't even know you at war, and you are actually losing the war and have no idea you're losing it.
Right.
Right.
Think
Right.
that you are actually winning.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very interesting. This reference was given to me. Psalms 19 and 12. Now, this is most extraordinary. When you understand what I just said, who can understand his errors? Cleanse thou me from my secret faults.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Who can understand? It's below your conscious level now.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you got something going on, and it's below your conscious level that you are asking and needing to have revealed to you,
Right.
and it needs to be what? Removed, eradicated, cleansed, discarded, what's going on, with you that you ain't even aware of going on.
Right.
But at the same time, you are blaming everybody for the problems.
Yes.
Right.
All of this is because of the biblical influence of scientific social engineering,
Mm-hmm.
of this inversion of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I said that it actually completely changed our structural makeup, everything.
Yeah.
It had an impact upon even the function of the universe. This is how profound this is. Continuing on, I break down, and each I say I decode and break down what these errors and secret faults are. I says, what are the secret faults other than those concepts and ideas that one is still following and believing in,
Yes.
that are out of context with wholeness?
Yes.
There are secrets, or the things that is below the individual or people's consciousness that they are unaware of.
Mm-hmm.
So now we find that we are following all manner of beliefs and concepts and ideas that we think is really good for us,
Mm-hmm.
and that we think is causing us to move, and things are happening. But at the same time, when you look now, and I'll give you an example. I'm sitting here today, and the sister walks come by, and she was telling me about some of the classes that's being done on the Shabbat within the Hifan here. And she was telling me how great they were and everything. And so she made a statement. She says, and she was just going on. So I stopped and asked her, I said, you used the term where we are. She said, this is where we are. And so I said, well, where are we? I asked the question. And then just before she told me where, we are, she had just given me two sisters in the hospital got the same situation. Now I'm saying, where we are, that's where we are?
Right. Right.
Now I'm saying, I don't want to be there. I don't want to be in the hospital.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to have this problem and that problem. If I'm going someplace, and because the kingdom has taken me someplace,
Right.
or to take me to a place where there is no problem. There's just joy and happiness and peace and health and well-being, goodness. That's where I want to be.
Right. Right.
So now these are the things that's going on, the secret faults that we need to be cleansed from, that we don't even know that they exist.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's it.
Must be below
Excellent.
the subconscious.
Excellent point.
Yeah, no question.
I said, Abba Ben-Ami has shared many revelations with his Hebraic community of Israelites. One of the most revealing is found in his book, Imitation of Life, the title is very fitting in retrospect to the revelation. The most profound revelation, he declared, is that the adversary, quote, by the application of scientific social engineering, creates inverted energy, quote, end of quote. This is energy turned to a contrary direction, changed from what was formerly the normal order. Well, another testimony. I'm in another meeting, and I raised this point that we talking about here. And I asked the question. I said, shouldn't we ask what was the normal order? One of the persons told me, no, I would never ask what the normal order. Wait a minute now. You don't know what the normal order is. You certainly need to know because it's been changed. You now so you think you are following the normal order
Right,
or the
right.
order, but it's been already. It's been inverted. So we under this perception that we are following the normal order. Now, that is profound deception.
Yes.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
brings the word deceive into the correct perspective as to how it's exactly laid out, which we will come to that as we continue on. Continuing on, says, are we able, now we asking a question here, are we able to review the biblical influence? Are we able to review this biblical influence of the scientific social engineering of inverted energy and still understand the profundity of our ancestors? That's a question. Can we review the biblical influence of the scientific social engineering of inverted energy and still understand the profundity of our ancestors? Whenever we speak of the ancestors today, we're referring only to our true nature and divinity in wholeness.
There you are.
We are well aware. We are well aware of what we have come to know and believe in our attempt to ascend back to our former higher divinity of consciousness. This is not an attempt to play down the effect and significance of the biblical writings or the understanding anyone feels that they have achieved concerning their biblical expertise. So now I had to say that now because, what you've been taught and what you believe, falls under this subconscious perception that you have, that you think that you're following, and doing the right thing. But I don't want to diminish and make someone feel like, so I stated it like that so that the expertise that you have, now we got to use these expertise now to evaluate exactly the truth about it, if you understand, okay?
Yeah.
When we do this, is the question. Continuing on, we said, in order for the human family to clearly understand our past, present, and future. Now I'm talking about that since our, devolution or descent into the physical world. Okay? We must review who we are and where we come from with the knowledge of this inversion of our energy. The emanation of man's transition from wholeness, perfection, to the creation of imperfection, division, and separation was from darkness to light. Now,
Mhm.
this is a key point here because now we're challenging all the things that Going back all the way to the beginning, let there be darkness.
That's correct.
Yes. Yes.
After
Yes.
imitation of life. Now I read again. The emanation of man's transition from wholeness, perfection, to the creation of imperfection, division, and separation was from darkness to light. This emanation of man's transition is actually the scientific social engineering of inverted energy. This is the energy turned to a contrary direction, changed from what was the normal order. This became the flaw within the creation of imperfection, division, and separation from darkness to light.
That's right.
Into the process of time, no, I'm sorry, in the process of time, this emanation of the sons and daughters of wholeness, perfection, and divinity in their devolution, descent, and fall into the earth realm becomes known as the simulated false mind matrix of reality.
Okay.
These sons and daughters descend and fall from the source of all life, the black dot, black hole, or dark energy, all representing melanin people.
Mhm.
As this species of people begin to commingle with the divided, separated, light, pale skin element of
Mhm. Mhm.
designation, that the dark melanin people was to be defined as evil, cursed, and demonic within the simulated false mind matrix of reality.
Absolutely.
So all this takes place within the devolution and descent into this physical realm. Then we go to quote the definition of black. Now we're going to really find here. It says black. This is from Grolier International Dictionary. It's Benjamin God, Black Man, Truth, revised edition on page 143. That's where you can find it at. It said black of the darkest possible color or hue, like soot or coal, or absorbing all light, or, now listen to this, absorbing all light or incapable of reflecting it, of an extremely dark color, noting or pertain to a dark-skinned race, especially Negro,
Mm.
old or stained, dismal or gloomy,
Mhm.
boding ill, sullen and forbidding, destitute of moral light or goodness, evil or wicked, causing or marked by ruin or desolation, calamitous or disastrous, deadly, malignant, indicating censure, disgrace, or liability to punishment. Now think about this.
Mm.
We have to now go back and ask ourselves what we are going through
Mhm. Come on, Nasik.
so that we can understand that this has nothing to do with no color,
Right.
yeah, but this has everything to do with where we was in a unified, holistic, consciousness of divinity into this, emanating into this physical realm of the simulated reality, commingling with, the opposite, in effect from wholeness and unity, which we would be what? Duality. Once we come into that, and We're no longer looking at things from a complementary, unified perspective.
Yeah.
We're now looking at things as opposites.
That's correct.
So we find here the definition, and at another time we'll look at how they define white. But moving on, the template, a gauge, a pattern, or model. This template now becomes significant in terms of simulated reality and the matrix and social structures on the planet today. Okay, it says a molecule as of DNA that serves as a pattern for generations of another macromolecule or messenger RNA. This is a template. This is exactly the template that the scientific social engineers used in formulating their social construction of the simulated mind matrix of reality.
Absolutely.
Everyone on the planet presently comes under the influence of some form of this hierarchy idea of socially governing of themselves, socially governance of themselves. This is all encapsulated within the biblical Genesis creative narrative. To the many that is under the influence of the scientific social engineering program are all victims of the deceived / cognitive dissonance, although humanity is without this knowledge. See, again, I stated the many because we ain't under that, you know.
Right.
I can't
Right.
see everybody.
Right.
Okay.
And there's many others, you know, that are not under it. But those that are under it, they are already deceived and they are under the influence of cognitive dissonance, psychological conflict within themselves and with everybody else that does not, you know, hold the same position in the simulated reality.
That's right.
But humanity is without this knowledge. The Genesis gives us our first experience with how personal ambition causes national suffering. After the descent of Adam and Eve, what would not have been was, and what would have been became a dream deferred. So now the dream deferred is what we are talking about returning to our divinity.
That's correct.
That has been deferred because of the forethought, Sophia, the feminine energy, you know, gave in terms of all of our agreement to bypass the first element and plunge into the waters, causing the flaw to manifest itself in our devolution. So under that influence, now the dream became deferred. Okay? This scientific social engineering of inverted energy program has been used as a template by mankind to establish all their hierarchy social system of government. This revelation is for each individual to take this to heart, because Abba Ben Ami revealed the complete impact of what occurred that must be reversed in order to ascend. Now, there is no ascension except we reverse the inversion. Now, you can't reverse an inversion when you don't know an inversion has occurred.
Right.
Even though it's written and talked about, but you, because it's below your conscious level where all of this has occurred, you cannot recognize or concur, you know, that, you know, you are actually, you know, inverted. That's a profound situation there, that you are in a predicament and don't even know it, can't get out of it, but believe you're doing well.
Right.
Quote, once you become conscious, you just continue to develop your consciousness to the highest level possible. Higher consciousness increases your dynamic energy, and that higher consciousness becomes the source for sustained higher development. Well, the objective is to maintain everyone in a low frequency, energy consciousness. To go back to the map that the brother David Hawkins, Power versus Force. What did he say? That humanity, never moves beyond hardly 5 points in a whole lifetime, and that 85% of humanity is functioning below the conscious level of 200. And so Eitai been constantly telling us that we got to really understand and try to maintain that level of 350, 400. So we got to maintain that. Other than that, you fall under that, you fall back, losing your what? Dynamic energy that becomes the source for further, sustaining to higher development. He said, on this plane, individual will become consciously aware of the subconscious influences. See, that's where we are now.
Yeah.
We have become consciously aware of the subconscious influences and forces, both internal and external, which in the past have shaped his life, our lives, nature, and has impacted upon even the functioning of the universe. This is Imitation of Life, page 69 and 70. So this is the goal and objective.
Those are those secret faults that you were talking about, those hidden errors.
Can.
All right.
The adversary, by the application of scientific, social, and engineering, creates inverted energy, which is an energy turned to contrary direction, change from the normal order. Let us turn our attention to a family of associated words: energy, innovate, inert. Now, energy shows us that we have this inherent power, and the power of operating, whether exerted or not. Power vigorously exerted, strength of expression. Innovate, now, here's the key. Once the inversion takes place, the concept that occurs is that one, in his inversion, he's deprived of nerve. His force of strength, he's weakened and debilitated.
Impaired.
Now, all of this occurs with the inversion process.
That's correct.
Now, once the inversion takes place, your energy been what? Changed to what? Contrary direction. Instead of you gaining nerve and becoming stronger, you're actually becoming weaker. But you can't perceive it because it's below the conscious level. It's below the conscious level. 3, inert. Having no inert power or action, motion or resistance as inert matter, inactive, inanimate, or without life. So what we see here is that the energy that gives life has been completely neutralized.
Yes.
Cause people to become what? They're completely inanimate or without life. Now, You say, in simple terms, an inert person or people are not likely to ever put all the pieces together in order to see the whole picture. Being deprived of nerve, they are literally afraid of what you will see. Now, this takes me to a session that I had, and this was on Shishi. In the session, we bring up the idea of this inversion and the effects of it. But the problem was centered around language, that when you start to talk about the inversion, that we got to use language that is already prescribed.
Yes.
You see, but if you're using the language that's already prescribed, you're using dualistic language.
Yes. Yes.
And so there's no way to what? Reverse the condition or even see the condition, because you're always looking at things from points of differences.
Mm-hmm.
So how do a people come together? Impossible, because they are without the life energy to reveal unto them the necessity of what? Converting, their energy and turning back to the normal.
Mm-hmm.
So this occurred, and it let me see, the profundity of, what has happened and how the ancestors have actually laid out this biblical narrative, that if you're trying to understand it, from a historical, intellectual point of view, you just get bogged down completely, and there's just no way for you to get out of the predicament.
No way.
Continuing on, I said, when you begin to see how the inversion has affected you in every aspect of your being on this earth, and if this has never happened, you have not become conscious, and you will not and cannot understand what is being revealed in this document. Whenever we closely evaluate the narrative of the Genesis, in a beginning or the beginning, we are proclaiming a time warp, which presumes that a sequence or string of events will make sense, with heaven and earth being created by God. Within our programming, we believed this to be the beginning of the time of the world. In reviewing the second verse, quote, "The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep," end of quote. We must not look at we must not look at the earth in this instance as physical matter. We should look more toward an energetic nature of the energy consciousness of a reincarnation into the physical plane called the simulated false matrix of reality. I'll read again. Must not look at the earth in this instant as physical matter. We should look more toward an energetic nature of the energy consciousness of a reincarnation into the physical plane called the simulated false mind matrix.
Mm-hmm.
This was our descent and fall from wholeness, perfection, into dualism.
Mm-hmm.
However, the descent and fall must have been from wholeness, perfection into duality, imperfection/imperfection. In order to be called an ascendant, we had to first descend into the simulated false mind matrix of reality. Now, this leads me to the profundity of it, what it actually caused to take place without us knowing. It says the concept of without form and void in Hebrew, tohu and bohu, is the diversity in or of consciousness in thought, knowledge,
Yes.
and behavior. Thus, this created the misery. Now, the term misery comes from the word in Hebrew, darkness. The word darkness in Hebrew, one of the first
Instances.
meanings is
Right.
misery, falsehood, and ignorance. That's tohu bohu
Mm-hmm.
among the earthly human government of the simulated false mind matrix of reality. This was the devolution, descent, and fall of the elevated sons and daughters' divinity, while losing their, now here's the point, quote, overarching unity of consciousness. Key point, overarching unity of consciousness. We lost that. This loss of overarching unity of consciousness is actually the plummet into the waters below, which is duality, division, and separation from wholeness, singularity into the simulated false mind matrix. Now, this is the waters below and the waters above.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now we fell into this condition here, and once we fell into this condition, this is what happened. Quote, let us suffice to say that any overarching unity of consciousness, now overarching unity of consciousness, meaning dominating or embracing all else, is not just difficult or impossible to prove, but it's fundamentally incompatible with dualistic language, which adds an additional burden of making it difficult to grasp with logic alone. Now, everything in the false simulated matrix is predicated upon what? Logic or illogic. Opposites. And so here under the dualistic language, you cannot perceive any kind of what? Overarching unity of consciousness. So that means outside of the unity of consciousness, and consciousness is the source for what? Sustained higher development.
Mm-hmm.
In a dualistic world, you cannot even entertain the idea of an overarching unity of consciousness, a dominating unity of consciousness. In other words, each I see it one way and I see it another way. How are we going to walk together? How are two going to walk together when they cannot even perceive any kind of unity of consciousness? Will always be, opposites. Will always be, I'm here and you there.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we stay under that influence, there's no way for us to ascend. Because our ascension has everything to do with what? Our unity, you understand, of consciousness. Continuing on. Why? Language was created to work exclusively through symbolism and divide nature into parts and action. This is from the book Biocentrism, page 37 by Robert Lanza. And we define biocentrism as relating to life and having life as its principal fact. In other words, everything that came into existence from life,
Mm-hmm.
But in the simulated reality, they try to carry it the other way around. But everything come into existence in life. Continuing on. Well, first, before we go any further, let's stop here and inquire. Is it any points reference to questions, or is there any questions, any comments on anything at this point?
I'm clear, Nasik.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. You know, we hope it's clear. Continuing on, we must remember that this occurrence took place when the feminine energy of Sophia that plummeted into the waters below of duality, division, along with the separation of the light from the darkness. This physical form, image, and likeness becomes the representation of male and female, or masculine and feminine energy consciousness, made responsible to reproduce the physical matter / flesh that we have now taken on or become. This is not just to procreate children, but to create or to bring all things into existence. Now, as we reconsider the concept idea of darkness within the Hebraic context of misery, falsehood, and ignorance, this will only make sense when we understand our emanation into the physical realm as our devolution, descent, or fall, where we lost the energy / knowledge of our consciousness of wholeness, perfection, and divinity. So, ignorance, falsehood, all comes, into existence or become a part of the devolution or descent that takes place when one loses, their energy and knowledge of consciousness of wholeness. This is what has actually occurred to the sons and daughters. And as we begin to awaken, now we see the profundity of how this cycle of time that we've been referring to as prophecy, has continued and will continue when you does not wake up or become conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything is predicated upon you, as opposed to, quote unquote, some external God,
Right.
bringing it in because of a people, you understand, pleasing him. So we go to this point. Thus, we must understand that this is the time warp or event that activated the scientific social engineering that created inverted energy, which is energy turned to a contrary direction from the normal order. So we give the definition of invert: a reversal of position or order from or relationship. Inverse, the condition of being turned inward or inside out, opposite in order, nature or effect, being an inversion function. Something of a contrary nature or quality, opposite, reverse. Now here we got a contrary nature, that a nature that a person or people can be in the same trenches with you, fight with you, do everything with you, and something happened to that relationship, and then that individual no longer is in the trenches with you, fighting alongside you, and then a tragedy happened, and you can't even, you understand, muster up enough energy to send a condolence, or you
Mm.
know, I mean, something
Mm. Come
something
on, Nasik.
terrible happened to a people,
Yes.
Right.
you
Yes.
know, when such can happen.
Yes.
How this is just to show you, you know, the profundity of what has happened, you know, with this inversion, that you lose everything as being people with feeling, concerns, you know what I'm saying,
Right.
and care. This is it's hard to imagine. We have to what, you know, go inside and reverse all of this here. Other than that, where are we going? Where are
Mm-hmm.
we going?
Mm-hmm.
Engineering, scientific social engineers created this inverted energy. This engineering, calculating, and manipulation, you know, has taken place, you know, that has been very artful, very unfair, and it has served the interests and purpose, you know, and intention of, you know, the conditions that exist on the planet. If you look and see all over the planet, African people, indigenous American, you know, people of color, melanated people, they are at war with one another in some form or the other, all over the planet,
Correct.
all over the planet.
Yes.
And it's just such a uh, uh, situation that exists that no one has no answer for how to resolve it. But
Right.
if we don't resolve it on this line, along with the other few out there that's moving in the same with the same energy, you
It ain't
know,
gonna happen.
it ain't gonna happen.
Right.
It will not happen.
Mm-hmm.
It will not happen. Continuing on, we pick up Isaiah 5 and 20, where it says, this is like the lead in to Isaiah 5 and 20. Thus light, well, let me go up and pick it up so to be clear. As we move from the Hebraic concept idea of that of the Greek to understand the continuity of the meaning of darkness, as we reflect back to the scientific social engineering programming perception of inverted energy, the concept of light was converted and darkness was inverted. Very key. Let me give the definition of convert. To alter the physical or chemical nature or properties of. To change from one form, image, or function to another. So now we see light has been converted and darkness has been inverted. So we're
Mm-hmm.
going. Thus, light replaces darkness in every aspect of the simulated false mind matrix of reality as the source instead of darkness.
Correct.
Scientific social perception, engineering of inversion created the necessity for the false mind matrix. The inversion was so effective, it forced the Hebraic community to refer to them ourselves as sons and daughters of light,
Wow. Mm-hmm.
ascendants as opposed to descendants.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now this is and the ancestors put this together,
That's
and
right.
then you begin to look at the profundity and the power of it. It actually forced us to what? No longer consider ourselves as descendants. because we thought by saying that we was a ascendant,
Right.
things would change.
Right. Dang.
Just by saying it, you understand, wasn't going to cause things to change. So, continuing on, Isaiah 5:20. Woe to them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light
Mm-hmm.
and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. No longer can we what? See these things as opposites.
Right.
We see them as opposites. And we're going to bring this out very clearly here in our next point. As we consider our transition from the old covenant to the new covenant, this will be a major paradigm shift in our mental consciousness. This will involve letting go of Yah God as being in an external place or existence to you, knowing that you are Yah God of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
All that the biblical narratives has been conveying is that this is an internal energy transition.
That's correct.
Is within everyone's self. A covenant is really an agreement. And this new agreement is to be made with oneself
Yes.
about the old you
That's
Yes.
in thought. And if there is a new you in thought,
Mm-hmm.
thereby there being no new knowledge of thought within you, you will not be able to make the necessary paradigm shift
Yes.
from the old covenant to the new covenant within your own self or others. Just won't be able to work with nobody.
Nope.
You will completely feel yourself that is necessary for you to separate yourself from everything and everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The whole creation process is the victim of the scientific social engineering program, which is the cause of deception, cognitive dissidence of all humanity. Under this influence of the inversion of man energy, created imperfection that is a division and separation of wholeness and oneness into duality, division, and separation. Thus, light was separated from darkness, although darkness provided one with the only full color concept as a spectrum. And we give the definition of spectrum: an array of the components of an emission or wave, separated and arranged in the order of some varying characteristic as wavelengths, mass, or energy. There exists a major necessity to understand the power of melanin. It is like chlorophyll, except much more effective at absorbing sunlight.
Mm-hmm.
This is why melanin is black, because it absorbs the entire spectrum
Mm-hmm.
of visible light and most invisible wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation. So now we see the significance of darkness
Yes.
and how, powerful this concept, idea, this energy is, because it's responsible for all life.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, the separation of light from darkness created the necessity, which is in the simulated false matrix of reality. This provided the concept of a new covenant, agreement of wholeness for humanity with a full spectrum to comprehend the vision of overarching, dominating, or embracing of all else through the unity of consciousness, as all the luminaries are in existence within the creation to reflect. All the luminaries are in existence within the creation to reflect a full spectrum.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Full spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So that we would have access to, the full knowledge, who we are, where we come from, our relationship to everything.
Right. Right.
We're going to stop here again and ask questions. Any points of concern? Any questions upon anything?
Nasik,
Yes, sir.
wholeness, everybody.
Oldness.
Oldness.
Wholeness.
Wholeness and divinity. Where are you reading from, Nasik? And Eitai, can what Nasik is reading posted or sent to?
Bakuria, he is reading from his notes, from his teaching notes. Nasik, did you provide me with those yet?
No, I'm going to give them to you this evening.
Okay. Can't put them up now, Bakuria.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, everybody have them. And what we're going to do once we come out of this one, we're going to go right on into this here, because this is all connected. 1 second here. Go right into someone is purposely destroying our life support system. We're going to see who that someone is. So we're always blaming someone for destroying the life support system.
Okay.
So this comes right out and goes right on into, how the biblical influence has affected,
Right.
and showing exactly, the significance of how we perceive things and how we conceive things and the effect it has upon us. Okay?
Slika, Nasik?
Go ahead.
Kane, yeah, on when you referred us to An Imitation of Life, I'd got my book out, and so the what the brother asked, some of the things are for, did you use page 72 for energy, innervate, and inert?
Yes.
All it came from there.
Yes.
Kane. Yeah, so Imitation of Life, just a few things that our Abba said was from Imitation of Life. That was the reference that he gave on that chapter. Well, this one is actually Social Reform, page 72. That's another chapter, but we started out with Let There Be Darkness.
Correct.
Chapter 1. All right.
Chapter 1, right.
Toda.
Yes, thank you. Toda.
So, no other points, we'll continue on. Now, so we find here, the significance of darkness giving us a full spectrum, and we go to the reference here of Jeremiah 31:27. Wow, Jeremiah 27 through 34. Okay, these are references here talking about the covenant that was made. And now, previously we just stated that it's going to be a major challenge in this paradigm shift, trying to shift from the old covenant to the new covenant. In other words, trying to shift your thoughts as to how you think about the perceptions that you have been taught about self and about your relationship to God, your relationship to everything. Now you're gonna have to what? Challenge yourself, because the covenant gonna have to be made with you.
Yes.
And it ain't made with nobody else.
Okay.
You got to make. So here, the writer Jeremiah gives us some insight about this, and I'm gonna try to pick up the main one here.
27, Nasik, Jeremiah 27 or 37?
31, 27.
Okay, 31. Okay.
31, 27 to 34. Okay, let's just pick up where it says, well, we'll take our time. We ain't going nowhere. Verse 27. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed of man and with the seed of the beast. Now you can see how all this ties into the simulated reality.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay? And it shall come to pass, 28, that like as I have watched over them to pluck up and to break down, to throw down and to destroy and to afflict, so will I watch over them to build and to plant, and saith the Lord. Now we got two verses here about the condition that we emanated into, and that after we become conscious and what? Make the shift out of the old, can things shift and things change? But if we never make the shift,
Yes.
things won't change.
Mm-hmm.
Things won't change. 29. In those days, they shall say no more, the fathers have eaten the sour grapes and the children teach on it. Well, this is the problem we got right now in the community, in the kingdom, is that the false simulated mind matrix has what? Taken its toll up on, the community in terms of the division and separation of our children. Said the father and the children's teeth been set on edge. So now, going back to what I mentioned when I was in Midspace, when the brother came forth and started talking about what was taking place within the community and how we lost our children, and now we got to start talking to them and bringing them back. Well, the children's position is that they're not saying false mind matrix, but their position is that, and like I was told just this weekend, 9-year-old asking, well, why we got to wear cords and why we got to wear fringes? And what would a 9-year-old, why would a be asking questions like that? Where's that coming from?
Okay.
A 9-year-old asking all manner of questions about, the things that we have had to apply within the simulated reality, given the appearance that it was going to change some things.
That's correct.
Haven't changed nothing. The change have to take place within.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Very nice.
30. But everyone shall die for his own iniquity. Every man that eateth the sour grape, his teeth shall be set on edge. 31. Behold, the days come, said the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Now this is where this new covenant, without this shift, in thought, knowledge, then if we continue to see ourselves as being created and under this creation, that this God of the Bible that we have not understood, As long as we are what? Wearing the cords and all the things, you would think that these things are the things that you would do that was what? Nobody else is doing, and it would shift things, right?
Right, right. Come on, Nasik.
Ain't shifted, has it?
Not a bit.
It hasn't shifted. So then we have to ask the question then, what is it that's preventing the shift from taking place? It ain't external, what you wearing out external. Some of the children are saying, you know, well, I'm wearing my fringes, you know what I'm saying, on my mind. Because the fringe was just supposed to do, and the cause you look up on it to remind you. So,
Yes.
if that's all it's supposed to do, why is it necessary, you understand, to put the emphasis on the external fringe? When someone says that they got it in their mind, then they say, well, why don't you put it on your garments?
This is so profound. This is so profound. You know, the scripture says that out of the mouth of babes and children is
Right.
knowledge perfected. Come on now.
So, continuing on 32. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the days that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was a husband unto them, said the Lord. 33. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, and said the Lord, I will put my law in their inward part. I'm going to stop right here. Now, when you research that, it does not say putting your law in your inward part. What it really says is to cause you to draw nigh. You know, cause the whole objective is to cause one to draw nigh within himself.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, but you know, it's been said that you put the law instructions, you know, in your inward parts, and the inward parts become quote unquote your soul. You know, that's what we call the soul. But when you look at the Hebrew word there, it means to draw, cause things to come nigh, to become close.
That's correct.
And it said, and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. 34. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sins no more. Any forgiveness and any remembrance of things in the past, it has to take place with you.
Yes, come on, Nasik.
That whole paradigm, Nasik.
Yes.
So we give a commentary on these scriptures, but we says here, this covenant was expressed as being broken in the narrative of the old covenant agreement as a need for a new covenant agreement, due to the fact that the first covenant, being faulty, was not able to unify man in divinity and wholeness of truth, whereas the new covenant proposed greater and better promises that would permit all that comprehend the flaw that occurred with the plummeted into the waters below of dualism, division, and separation.
That's it.
The concept of the new covenant gave all those under the influence described in the Genesis that was without form and void or tohu bovohu the opportunity and another chance to escape the simulated false mind matrix of reality. This is what the covenant did. It gave us a what? An opportunity and another chance to escape the false mind matrix of reality. Now, certainly, we certainly need an opportunity and a chance, because remember now, all of this that occurred, various times.
Correct. Over time.
Process of reincarnation. We ain't been able to get out of this situation.
That's correct.
As long as I've been knowing about history, everybody in their religious experience, wherever they are, whatever they've been talking about, conditions have never changed for sons and daughters of darkness.
That's correct.
Nowhere on the planet. And now we've been praying, and we done everything.
Right. Okay.
Yes. We did everything, do everything.
Holy days.
We've done it all.
Oh, yes.
And still ain't nothing changed. So that leaves us with the new covenant then. And as we go through the new covenant, as Hebrews 8th chapter, verses 1 through 13. Okay, and this is something that we picked up here in Hebrews 8. It says, now of the things which we have spoken, this is the sum of it. We have such an high priest who is set on the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven, a minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle, which the Lord pitched and not man. Verse 3, for every high priest is ordained to offer gifts and sacrifices.
Absolutely.
For fair, wherefore it is of necessity that this man has somewhat also to offer.
Come on now. I see you getting ready to teach my class, y'all.
Well, if he were on earth, he should not be a priest. There are priests that offer gifts according to the law.
Come on now.
Who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things, as Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle. For see, said he, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed to thee in the mount. Now, again, we have to go back now to the spectrum, the full spectrum, because we got to talk about how the full spectrum will give us insight of how to see, quote unquote, the template that has been used to establish, the simulated false matrix. If we don't have the full spectrum to see it, we'll still believe that this false matrix is something that we need to what? Continue to try to perfect, in our social environment as a government structure.
Right.
Trying to correct it.
We got to see it. Other than that, we'll continue to keep this developing simulated realities, thinking that they are organic.
Okay.
Real important. Yeah, so this is very, very significant. Continuing on. Here we find he says, verse 6, but both he obtained a more excellent ministry, how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. Verse 7, for if that first covenant had been faultless, and then should no place have been sought for the second. So now we see this whole old covenant, if we still hold on to it,
Right.
it means we got to be what? Under the influence of cognitive dissonance and don't know it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Going on, 8. For finding fault with them, he said, behold, the days come, said the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. So now, what is this new covenant that we got to make that some kind of way we have not understood, but Corey, what the covenant is that we got to make?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The covenant ain't fringes and cords of blue.
Come on, Nasik. Yes, yes.
It's a part of the simulated reality.
Continuing on. 9. He says, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the days when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, says the Lord. Now here we give a little commentary here. We says, one cannot be regarded, attention, consideration, or protective interest in a covenant agreement when they willingly does not or cannot maintain the required relationship established upon the promises of the covenant. How am I going to get some attention and consideration or protective interest when what? There's no way for me to what? Maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Although the old covenant was weak because of the promises that was given, was predicated upon, was not predicated upon eternal or everlasting principles.
Mm-hmm.
So if the old covenant was not predicated upon everlasting and eternal principles, how can you get some benefits of being eternal, and consideration for physical immortality and everlasting life? Where's it going to come from?
Yeah.
Got to make the shift.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a major challenge because of this dualistic language they use in the matrix. It just will not let you see things complementary. It's going to make you look at things, oppositional differences. Continuing on. Verse 10. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Lord. I will put my law in their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. 12, for I will be merciful to their unrighteousness. This is the interesting scriptures here. I'll be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. 13, and that he said, a new covenant he has made, the first old. Now that which decays and wax old is ready to vanish away.
And it's
Now,
close.
remember Moses going into the tabernacle, going into the Holy of Holies, and what Moses was, given instructions, but when he come out, he had to put a veil over his face.
That's correct.
And that veil over his face was to keep the children of Israel from looking to the end of that which was going to be done away with. Now, how is it that we does not understand that the old, what we call the old covenant, the Old Testament, the instructions of that, dispensation of time is going to take us, you understand, on forward. We got to stop and ask ourselves, how that's going to happen. So we give a little, statement here of Hebrews 8 and 13, 8, 1 to 13. The question says, have the light become the truth, or darkness perceived as false? Can we possibly, as a community, be deceived? Now listen to the definition. Deceive, to cause to accept as true or valid, quote unquote, the light, and darkness to be false or invalid. And this is what can happen. To cause to accept, as true or valid, what? The light.
Yes.
And darkness to be false or invalid. In other words, the inversion. Now here, under this concept, we ain't looking at the full spectrum. We're looking at aspects of the full spectrum. Okay? So we close out the point here. We say the sum of the concept of the new covenant is that the old covenant existence was of a weaker field of dominance within the simulated false matrix of reality. A field of dominance exhibited by high energy attractor patterns of influence over weaker ones.
That's correct.
The attractor patterns of varying strength of expression are those in the hierarchy of positions of authority. So, the attractive pattern of varying strength of expression are those in the hierarchy of position of authority. We don't see no unity of thought.
Right.
We see the varying, you understand, expression of, quote unquote, the whole or the unity within the hierarchy of positions of authority. And this is, this does not send a unified, overarching unity of consciousness, which is necessary for all to utilize and go forward. This don't send that kind of signal. So with that, we're going to close this portion out and ask if there are any questions or any comments.